first boy I met at the school for shifters tried to make me kneel. The second tore him off the ground without even touching him. I came here expecting wolves, rank, and humiliation. I was not prepared for the hooded boy. Chapter 2, The Arrival. The bus groaned to a stop in a swirl of dust, its brakes hissing like something wounded. The whole frame shuddered around us, metal rattling, windows trembling in their seals. For one long second, no one moved. Then the folding doors wheezed open, and the heat outside came rolling in all at once, dry and rough, and full of sun-baked grit. It smelled like scorched earth, old iron, and stone that had been cooking under the sky since dawn. I rose on shaking legs and followed the others down the aisle, one hand dragging along the cracked vinyl seatbacks to steady myself. My boots hit the first step, then the second, then the packed dirt below. And I saw it. Beyond the chain-link fence, the school for shifters loomed over the yard like a fortress built by something that didn't love children. The main building was a vast structure of black stone and smoked glass, all hard lines and impossible height, its face broken by narrow vertical windows that caught the light like slitted eyes. It wasn't shaped like any ordinary school I'd imagined. There was no welcoming symmetry, no broad front lawn, no cheerful sense of invitation. It looked ancient and modern at once, as if some ruined mountain keep had been hollowed out and threaded through with sleek panes of dark mirror. Several towers rose from the central mass, uneven in height and shape, like jagged teeth or the broken crowns of old kings. Some were square and brutal, their corners sharp enough to wound the sky. Others were linked by glass walkways hung at dizzying heights. Here and there, silver lines had been set into the stone in patterns too deliberate to be decorative. They glimmered faintly beneath the surface with that same unnatural sheen I'd glimpsed from the bus. Not bright enough to call magic outright, but wrong enough that my skin tightened when I looked at them too long. The whole place shimmered in the heat haze, but not like normal heat. The air around the upper floors seemed to bend strangely, warping edges, making the towers look as though they shifted by fractions when I blinked, as though the school did not sit entirely still in the world, but pressed against it from some place just behind it. A high wall of black iron fencing enclosed the front grounds, its pointed bars set into a low base of dark stone. The gate stood open beneath an arched entryway wide enough for a truck to pass through, though open did not make it feel welcoming. The gate doors themselves were thick metal, latticed with old hammered symbols, and above them hung a crest worked into the archstone, a circle quartered into 4, each section bearing the mark of a house. Even from a distance, I could feel the weight of it, like the school was announcing that from this line onward, you belonged to something, or you belonged to nothing. Inside the fence stretched a broad front courtyard, bigger than I'd expected, shaped almost like a parade ground. Pale dirt and crushed gravel covered most of it, beaten flat by years of boots and paws. Paths of darker stone cut across the yard in straight lines, dividing the space into rough sections that looked less designed for beauty than for control. To the left stood a row of iron benches, bolted into the ground beneath a few stunted desert trees. To the right sat low stone planters full of gray-green shrubs and thorny flowering vines climbing iron trellises. Farther out, I spotted a practice ring marked in white chalk. The dirt inside it churned darker than the rest, as if fights happened there often enough to stain the earth. Straight ahead, the path led to the school's main doors, towering slabs of reinforced black wood banded in iron, set into a recessed entrance, flanked by columns thick as tree trunks. Above them, the stone rose another 3 stories before splitting into a wide terrace lined with carved balustrades. More students watched from there, leaning over the edge like nobles observing a spectacle in an arena. Above them hung banners in 4 different colors, each marked with a different sigil, snapping lazily in the dry wind. Everything about it felt built to make newcomers feel small. Not just small, measured, judged. My breath caught in my throat. The school was beautiful, but in the way cliffs were beautiful, or storms gathering over open water. The kind of beauty that did not care if you survived it. Students poured off the bus behind me in a restless wave, their voices rising the moment their feet hit the ground. The yard came alive with motion. Packs were already gathering beneath the house banners and along the stone paths, clustering by scent and confidence and old loyalties. Their laughter bounced off the black walls in sharp echoes. Some called greetings to older students across the yard. Others shoved each other, posturing, grinning too wide, already trying on whatever version of themselves they thought might survive here. The upper years were easy to spot. They moved differently. They didn't bunch together nervously or scan the grounds with wide eyes. They sprawled where they wanted, leaned where they liked, took up space like they owned the stones under everyone else's feet. Many wore house colors on their uniforms or jackets, and some had silver clasps, braided cords, or insignias that marked rank I didn't understand yet. They stood along the paths, against the planters, near the gates, and on the broad steps leading to the main entrance, watching the new arrivals with the lazy stillness of predators, deciding what to toy with first. Jada planted herself beside me and Corin as soon as we cleared the last bus step. Her arms crossed over her chest so tightly the muscles in her forearms stood out, and her jaw had that locked look people got when they were trying not to show fear by being annoyed instead. She kept sweeping the courtyard with quick, practiced glances, reading the mood of the place the way prey animals read a field for movement in the grass.
"Stick close,"
she muttered, not taking her eyes off the older students.
"First years are fresh meat, and some of these jackals live for hazing."
She wasn't wrong. Now that I knew where to look, I could see it happening all over the yard. Near the gate arch, several older wolves had already formed a rough ring around a knot of smaller first years, hemming them in so they couldn't reach the main path without going through them. Another cluster had claimed the steps leading toward the doors, lounging across them like a living barricade. A few more stalked between groups, singling out anyone who looked uncertain, isolated, or weak enough to be entertaining. The whole courtyard had arranged itself by instinct into territories, safe pockets, danger zones, places where the bold gathered and places where the vulnerable got cornered. By the gates, a group of what I assumed were deltas or omegas was already being worked over by older wolves. Their voices carried clearly in the hot air, barked commands, snapping back and forth over the yard.
"Knees. Lower. Did I say you could look at me?"
A smaller boy was shoved hard enough to sprawl flat in the dust. Gravel bit into his palms as he scrambled. Another student, slight and narrow-shouldered, was ordered onto all fours and made to crawl in a crooked circle while the upper years laughed and nudged each other. A girl with her hair half fallen from its braid bowed low enough that her forehead nearly touched the dirt, while an alpha held out one boot and told her to clean it if she wanted permission to pass. My stomach twisted. No one stopped it. No teacher cut through the crowd. No staff member shouted for order. The older students, watching from the steps, didn't look shocked. A few looked bored, as if this was orientation in the same way some schools handed out maps and class schedules. Others watched with naked amusement, their eyes bright and hungry. My wolf whined inside me, claws scraping against the walls of my ribs. Every instinct I had recoiled from the sight, not just from pity, but from recognition. Submission had a shape. Humiliation had a rhythm. My body knew both too well. We can't just let them. I had barely shifted my weight before Jada's hand locked around my arm. Her fingers bit down hard enough to make me wince.
Don't.
The word came out low and sharp, not cruel, but urgent enough to make me stop fighting her grip.
You'll only draw attention to yourself, and I can't protect you from a pack of alphas, geash or no geash.
The warning chilled me more effectively than if she'd shouted. The deltas and omegas bowed lower as the wolves circled them, and then, as if the whole thing were some organized ritual of degradation, the older students called the betas forward next. Some of the betas tried to posture, tried to square their shoulders and hold eye contact. One puffed himself up like size alone could save him. Another set his jaw so hard I could see the muscles ticking from where I stood. It made no difference. The upper years descended on them with open delight, shoving them back, mocking the stiffness in their spines, daring them to prove they thought too highly of themselves. One beta refused to kneel. 3 older wolves were on him in a heartbeat, one grabbing his collar, another wrenching his arm behind his back, the third forcing him down by the back of the neck until he finally buckled. The laughter that followed cracked across the yard, loud enough to turn heads from half a courtyard away. Under it, I heard the raw, ugly sound of him choking. Jada made a sound in her throat, half disgust, half resignation.
Come on, you two. Standing around like lost puppies is painting targets on your backs.
She steered us away from the center of the yard with brisk, irritated purpose, one hand still in my arm and the other flicking at Corin until he moved faster. We cut along the far edge of the courtyard, skirting a row of benches where a pair of feline girls sat pretending not to watch the hazing, then passed beneath one of the thorn-covered trellises where dry petals had blown loose and gathered in the cracks of the stone. The farther we moved from the gate, the more the front grounds opened up. To one side, the chalk-ringed practice yard sat empty for now, though the dirt inside it was packed and scarred with deep grooves that looked like claw marks. Beyond it rose a side wing of the school, lower than the main towers, but still severe, with narrow windows and long exterior balconies caged in dark iron. Across from that stood what might have been an administrative building or dormitory annex, its entrance framed by carved beasts half hidden in shadow. More students milled there too, though fewer upper years had claimed that side. The danger wasn't gone, just thinner. Jada finally dragged us toward a long folding table set up under a canvas shade awning near the edge of the courtyard. If the rest of the school looked like a fortress, the refreshments table looked like surrender. The tablecloth was half askew, one corner hanging nearly to the ground. Paper plates sagged beneath half-crushed pastries, sticky fruit slices, and something that might once have been cookies before heat and careless hands ruined them. A bowl of punch sweated pink onto the table. A cloudy plastic dispenser of lemonade leaned at a worrying angle beside a stack of cups, all of them slightly dusted over, as if the wind had taken personal offense at hospitality. The whole spread smelled like sugar, warm plastic, fruit going soft in the sun, and the quiet humiliation of adults who had tried to make something cheerful in a place designed to crush it. 2 enormous figures were hunched over it, as if answering a sacred call. One was a broad, barrel-chested boy with skin the shade of wet earth, his thick cheeks stuffed so full they bulged. Crumbs clung proudly to his braids, his chin, and the front of his shirt, where a spreading grease stain had already claimed permanent territory. He had the dense, immovable solidity of something that could walk through a wall and apologize only if there was dessert on the other side. Beside him stood an even taller Asian girl with arms like carved pillars and tusk-shaped earrings brushing her neck whenever she moved. Her expression was serene, almost meditative, as she demolished an entire tray of sandwiches, one by one, with the tranquil concentration of someone performing a holy rite. She didn't so much eat as commit. Jada rolled her eyes toward the heavens, or maybe just the awning.
Cybele, Corin, meet my charming housemates, Rolo the hippo and May the elephant. Both technically second years, though you wouldn't know it from the way they're hogging first-year food.
Rolo lifted one greasy hand in greeting, cheeks still bulging.
Welcome to the jungle, newbies. It's eat or be eaten.
May swallowed with dignified calm, reached for another sandwich, and smirked.
And you better eat fast. The wolves will be along to piss on everything any second.
The knot in my chest should have loosened. For one fragile moment, I thought it might. Rolo's ridiculous grin, May's dry delivery, even the way Jada looked permanently offended by the existence of everyone around her. It all pressed at the edges of something almost normal, almost safe. The kind of moment that might have made me laugh if I'd been anyone else, if I'd come from somewhere else, if my body didn't still feel like a trap I'd been born inside. But then my gaze drifted back toward the gates. The older wolves were still at it. From where we stood beneath the awning, I could see the movement in flashes between shoulders and bodies, a cruel little theater unfolding in the dust. One of the smaller first years, a girl with trembling arms and half-shifted ears flattened tight to her head, was being forced to crawl through the yard, while a ring of upper years paced around her, barking, laughing commands. Dirt clung to her knees. Her braid had come loose and dragged behind her like a rope. Nearby, another first year tried to rise too quickly and caught a sharp slap across the muzzle for it, the crack of it carrying even through the noise of the courtyard. His head snapped to the side. Laughter followed at once, easy and delighted. Their eyes were the worst part. Not anger, not rebellion, shame. That wet, hollow, hunted look of people trying to disappear inside their own skin. Every twitch of their shoulders, every lowering of their heads, every careful movement screamed the same thing. Don't make it worse. Don't make them notice me more. Please let this end, my wolf whimpered. The sound didn't come from my throat, but I felt it all the same, low and pitiful, dragging through the center of me. Her claws scraped against the inside of my ribs, as if she wanted out, or maybe deeper in, somewhere no one could reach her. It could have been me down there. It had been me, not once, not twice, over and over again, back home, in 100 small humiliations and a handful of unforgettable ones, bowing, lowering, making myself soft, making myself harmless, learning how to shrink before someone else decided to do it for me, learning how to make my eyes empty and my body still and my pride very, very quiet. Heat burned behind my eyes. The courtyard began to blur at the edges, bright sun and black stone smearing together until everything looked too sharp and too far away at once. The laughter around me warped, stretching thin and strange, as though I were already falling underwater. Rollo's crumbs, May's tusk earrings, Jada's hard mouth and tense shoulders, the pink sweat beading on the punch bowl, the dust skittering over stone. All of it fell away, and suddenly I could only see my mother, pale, tired, beautiful in the brittle way a candle is beautiful when it's burning down to the wick. I saw her standing in our old kitchen, with her shoulders squared against something bigger than herself, speaking a truth the alpha had not wanted spoken. I remembered the silence after, the way the room had changed shape around her, the fear that moved through everyone else like a draft, the look on her face when she realized honesty had a cost, and that cost would be taken from all of us. Then my father, not his face this time, but the weight of what he had done by sending me here, the risk, the defiance, the punishment that would come for him if the alpha decided to make an example of our family. It hit me all at once, not as thought, but as certainty, heavy and suffocating. He was paying for me already. I had run. I had left, and there was no world in which men like that let defiance go unanswered. I'm sorry. The words tore out of me before I even knew I was speaking. Loud, raw, wrong. I lurched to my feet so suddenly the folding chair legs scraped against the ground. Paper plates jumped. The lemonade dispenser wobbled. Someone made a startled sound. Several heads snapped toward me, but I couldn't stay there. Not with the wolves laughing, not with those kids in the dust, not with my mother's face in my mind, and my father's punishment pressing against my lungs until I could barely breathe. I stumbled away from the table, then broke into a run.
Cybele!
Jada shouted. I barely heard her. The yard pitched around me in fragments as I shoved through the crowd. Shoulders clipped mine. Someone cursed. Gravel crunched under my boots as I cut across one of the dark stone paths, then back into the dust again. The courtyard seemed twice as wide now, the main doors impossibly far, black and towering at the top of the steps, like the mouth of some beast. Wind stung my eyes. My breath tore in and out of me in sharp, ugly bursts. I just needed inside, away, anywhere the laughter would sound smaller. I hit the bottom of the entrance steps at a half run and nearly slipped on loose gravel. Then I drove upward, shoulder lowered, heart beating so hard it felt less like panic and more like injury, and slammed straight into a wall of muscle. The impact snapped my head back. For one disorienting second, all I saw was dark cloth, a broad chest, and a flash of silver. Then strong hands closed around my upper arms, not gently, but firmly enough to stop me cold.
Where's the fire, little one?
The voice was amused. I looked up. The wolf blocking my way grinned down at me, sharp canines bright against the shadow of his mouth. He was older than me, maybe by a year or two, but the difference in presence made him feel older than that, like he'd been fed on confidence since birth. His hair was cut short and bristling, his build lean and predatory, all corded muscle and easy cruelty. He wore his jacket open over a fitted shirt, and stitched over the breast was a silver half-moon crest that caught the sunlight with a cold gleam. Even without knowing what it meant, I knew it mattered. He smelled like male wolf, hot skin, iron, and rank. Not just rank in the school, rank in the pack sense. The kind you felt before you understood, the kind your body recognized and reacted to without permission. My pulse stuttered.
Stones and bones!
Jada's voice cracked from somewhere behind me, suddenly shrill with alarm.
That's Derek, contender for Alpha King of second year. We have to get her out of there.
I twisted enough to see the pack of herbivores barreling toward us across the courtyard. Jada in front, furious and terrified at once. Rollo and May moving with startling speed for their size. Corin jostled between them like an anxious leaf caught in the wake of a stampede, but they were still too far away. Derek sniffed once. That was all. One slow inhale, and I saw the exact moment he caught my scent. His grin sharpened.
Omega.
He said it like he was tasting it, letting it dissolve on his tongue, savoring the humiliation packed inside the word. A few wolves nearby turned at once, then a few more. Attention moved outward in ripples. Conversations slowed. Heads angled our way. Predators scented blood faster than crowds scented drama. And in this place, the two seemed to travel together.
You think you got away on the bus?
Derek said, almost conversationally.
Hiding behind your protector.
His fingers loosened from my arms, but only because he no longer needed to hold me still. I wasn't going anywhere, not with him standing that close, not with my body already beginning to betray me.
But he's not here now.
His voice rose, carrying easily over the yard.
And everyone knows what omegas are really bred for.
The wolves around us laughed, not all at once. First, a snort, then a bark of amusement, then a spreading chorus, ugly and delighted. As more students realized what was happening on the steps, people began to drift closer, not close enough to intervene, only close enough to watch. The ring around us widened and tightened at the same time, open space carved out by hunger for spectacle. Derek lifted one hand and pointed toward the dirt below the steps.
Get down on your hands and knees. Show them how you beg. Show them why packs keep your kind around at all.
My throat locked shut. It felt as if the air had thickened, turned to something I had to claw through just to breathe. Shame rushed through me so hot it made my skin ache. I could feel every eye on my body, every ear straining for the sound I might make, every imagination in that crowd already trying to strip me down into a lesson. Derek's eyes gleamed, cruel, hungry, certain.
Maybe I should make an example of you,
He said, his voice dropping low enough that the words felt personal again, more dangerous for being intimate.
Right here, right now. Let them all see what an omega's good for.
Something inside me recoiled so hard it almost became rage. I thought of the hooded boy on the bus, of the way he had stood up for me without hesitation, without even knowing me. Someone had looked at an omega and seen something worth protecting. Someone had refused to laugh, refused to bow to what the rest of them believed natural. The thought hit like a spark, landing in dry grass. A growl tore from my throat, low, feral, shaking. Before I could stop it, my body began to answer. Heat rushed through my limbs, my nails thickened, my teeth ached. Pressure built along my spine and shoulders as my wolf surged forward, answering humiliation with instinct older than fear. Fight, fight, even if it ends badly. Fight, because being broken on your feet is still different from kneeling. The wolves around us burst into fresh laughter, sharp, eager, almost hysterical now.
Oh?
Derek's mouth curled.
This omega wants to challenge an alpha?
He stepped back, just enough to give the crowd a better view, feeding on them, feeding them in return. His posture changed, broadened, deepened. His grin split wider.
I guess it's time to teach you a lesson. And afterwards, claim my prize.
He threw his head back and howled. The sound ripped through the courtyard. Students flinched. Birds exploded from somewhere high in the towers. The hairs all along my arms rose as the air itself seemed to tighten in answer. Then Derek changed. His body surged upward and outward in a violent blur of muscle and fur. Bones cracked and rolled beneath his skin with wet, snapping sounds that made my stomach lurch. His shoulders widened, his jaw lengthened. Dark fur burst across his arms, chest, and throat in a wave. When the shift settled, he stood in a towering half-human, half-wolf form, enormous and brutal, a mountain of fur, fang, and muscle balanced on digitigrade legs that looked built to crush bone. His silver crest stretched taut against the remnants of his jacket, and his eyes burned with the savage satisfaction of someone who knew he had already won. Blood of 1,000 moons. My own change faltered. What had felt like rising fire inside me went thin all at once, as though someone had opened a door and let the heat pour out. My half-formed claws trembled. The tension along my spine collapsed. My wolf, who had lunged forward only a heartbeat ago, shrank back in terror so sudden and complete it nearly made me dizzy. Derek's dominance hit like standing too close to a furnace. Not warmth. Overwhelming force. Ancient, brutal hierarchy crashing down on instinct, ordering every weaker thing beneath it to lower its head and expose its throat. My body answered before my mind could resist. My shoulders wanted to curl inward. My gaze wanted to drop. Every nerve screamed the same command. Belly to dirt, submit, survive. My half-transformation wilted like a flower thrust into a blast furnace. Pathetic, incomplete, already dying. Maybe it wouldn't hurt as much if I didn't fight it. The thought came slippery and shameful and horribly persuasive. Maybe if I just gave in. Maybe if I went down fast enough, quiet enough, obedient enough, he'd lose interest before he broke something. Maybe if I let him claim me, let him prove every terrible thing he believed, it would end faster. My wolf was cowering inside me now, not just afraid, but infecting me with her fear, twisting even my own thoughts toward submission. It was like being haunted from within by something small and desperate and certain that survival mattered more than dignity. And worst of all, part of me believed her. Then heat brushed against my skin. Not Derek's heat, not the suffocating, rank alpha pressure radiating off the thing he had become. This was different. It touched me lightly at first, just a whisper of warmth at my back, but it carried a scent that hit me like the first crack of thunder before a storm breaks over dry land. Sandalwood, cedar, and beneath it, something deeper and stranger. Stone that had drunk fire for 1,000 years. Sun-baked earth after lightning. Ancient things buried in temples and woken angry. The scent slid through me in a slow, devastating coil, wrapping around my ribs, filling my lungs, pressing against the frantic beat of my heart until I forgot, for one impossible second, to be afraid in the same way. My wolf shrank back with a whine, but my human heart lurched toward it, traitorously, hungrily. The hooded boy, the one from the bus, the one whose presence kept splitting the world into before and after every time he appeared. And then his voice came, calm as steel drawn clean from the forge.
You're in my way.
No shout, no growl, no panic, just certainty. The kind of certainty that didn't need volume because it had never once considered the possibility of being ignored. How can he be so calm? The thought struck through me in a flash. Why is he here? Why now, when I need a protector more than ever? How is he not afraid? The courtyard stilled. It didn't happen all at once. First, the nearest laughter faltered. Then a few wolves turned their heads. Then conversation thinned across the yard in widening ripples until the whole courtyard seemed to tighten around the sound of his voice. Even the wind felt quieter. Even the banners overhead seemed to slacken mid-snap. Every gaze fixed on us. No, not us. On him. I turned, breath catching painfully in my throat. He stood a few paces behind me on the entrance steps, one hand still tucked in the pocket of his dark coat, the hood shadowing most of his face. He looked almost unchanged from the bus, which somehow made it worse, more unnatural, more impossible. He should have looked winded or tense, or at least alert, standing in front of a transformed alpha in a courtyard full of wolves. Instead, he looked bored, or perhaps not bored, merely untouched. The black fabric of his hood stirred faintly in the dry air. Beneath it, his face was all stillness and sharp lines, and his eyes flickered with that same eerie green I'd seen before, faint at first, like witchlight glimpsed deep in a cave, steady, unblinking, not bright enough yet to dazzle, only enough to warn. Every gaze shifted between the three of us, me shaking and half collapsed under the weight of Derek's dominance. Derek himself, monstrous and towering, fur bristling, chest heaving, jaws parted in a grin that still hadn't learned caution. And the hooded boy, slight only by comparison, utterly still, as though the rest of us were weather and he was stone. Derek barked out a laugh, roughened by his transformed throat, the sound tangled with a snarl.
You again. You only surprised me on the bus. Now that I'm transformed, you aren't strong enough to even talk to me. I'll show you the real strength of...
He never finished. One moment he was sneering. The next, his feet left the ground. The shift was so abrupt, my mind rejected it at first. Derek's massive body jerked upward, like a puppet yanked by an invisible wire. His claws slashed at empty air. His legs kicked once, twice, uselessly. A harsh, choking noise tore from his throat as his hands flew to his neck. The hooded boy didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even seem particularly interested. His eyes simply burned brighter. What had been a faint green flicker sharpened into something vivid and unnatural. Twin emerald flames lit from within, not reflected light, not a trick of the sun. Power, cold in its control, hot in its effect. The kind of light old stories warned you not to follow into the dark. A collective gasp rippled through the courtyard. Someone stumbled back down the steps. Another wolf swore under his breath. I heard Jada stop short somewhere behind the crowd. Derek's choking turned ragged. His massive body writhed in the air, shoulders convulsing, claws flexing, as if he could tear free of whatever held him. But there was nothing to fight, nothing visible, nothing with a shape or grip, only force, pure and absolute. Invisible hands had closed around his windpipe. I could see it in the strain of his neck, the bulging cords, the widening panic in his eyes. His mouth opened in a soundless snarl. Saliva flashed at the edge of his teeth. Then the hooded boy flicked his wrist. The gesture was small, almost lazy. Derek flew sideways. He hit the great black doors with a crack that thundered across the courtyard. The whole entryway shook. Iron bands rattled. Dust burst from the frame. Before anyone could even react, Derek was yanked up again and slammed back into them. Once, twice, 3 times. Each impact rang out like a battering ram striking the gates of a fallen city. Wood boomed. Iron screamed. The sound rebounded off the towers and terraces and came back meaner. With every strike, Derek's body looked less like an alpha king contender and more like meat being taught humility. No one laughed this time. Not yet. The entire courtyard had gone dead silent. Every face lifted, every body held in that electric stillness crowds fall into when they stop enjoying a spectacle and start wondering if they're witnessing the sort of thing that changes rules. On the 4th strike, the doors gave way. The reinforced wood exploded inward with a splintering crack, one hinge shearing loose, iron shrieking as the heavy panels burst open under the force. Shards of black wood skidded across the stone floor beyond. Derek's body dropped with them, crumpling in a tangle of limbs and fur at the threshold, gasping and choking, as if the ground itself had knocked the arrogance out of him. For half a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the courtyard erupted. Laughter tore through the wolves in a wild, disbelieving wave. Not the cruel laughter from before. This was sharper, louder, almost joyous in its viciousness. Wolves doubled over. A few actually howled. Even some of the alphas on the steps barked out stunned laughs before they could stop themselves. Derek Hale, contender for Alpha King, had just been used as a battering ram in front of half the school. The hooded boy stepped forward through the noise as if it belonged to some other world. He passed Derek's broken, heaving body without looking down. Not a glance, not a pause. His boots crossed splintered wood and twisted iron with the same steady rhythm he might have used strolling through an empty hallway. He stopped just inside the ruined doorway and turned his head slightly toward me.
Ladies first.
The words were quiet. They still carried. Not polite, not teasing, not even warm. A command, plain and effortless, wrapped in the kind of certainty that It made obedience feel less like a choice than a law of nature. My wolf obeyed at once. So did the rest of me. My legs trembled as I edged forward, every muscle still tight with the aftershocks of terror. I had to step around Derek's sprawled form, around splintered wood and cracked stone, around the wreckage of the moment that had almost become the worst humiliation of my life and had instead become his. My heart was beating too fast. My skin felt too tight. I couldn't stop looking at him. Thanks, I stammered, barely forcing the word past my lips. He didn't answer, didn't nod, didn't look pleased, didn't reassure me. He simply turned and walked into the school through the wrecked doors, as though none of it had cost him anything, as if throwing a transformed alpha through reinforced timber was no more worthy of comment than brushing dust from a sleeve. And somehow, that frightened me almost as much as it thrilled me. Jada, Corin, Rollo, and May caught up, panting from their sprint to the doors. Jada cuffed me upside the head. Ow! Escaped my lips.
You'd be a lot worse off if Derek had made you crawl in the dust or lick his boots or let's not think about it.
Then, softer, almost grudgingly,
Gods, you're going to be a handful. I can already tell.
Corin was staring past me into the broken doorway, pale as paper, his silver-white hair half in his face, but his eyes were strange, unfocused, in the way they got when he was looking at something no one else could see.
What was that?
He whispered.
Magic.
Jada said, still glaring toward the hall where the hooded boy had vanished.
Definitely magic.
Corin shook his head at once.
No.
Jada blinked at him.
No?
No, that wasn't magic. Not the way I know it.
Rollo frowned.
What's the difference?
Corin swallowed and pointed shakily toward the ruined doorway.
Magic has structure. My parents taught me the basics. Even simple spells need channels, elements, shaping. You pull from something. Air, flame, stone, water, shadow, light. When I look at magic, I can usually see it. The weave of it, the currents, the balance.
Jada stared at him.
You can see magic?
Corin gave a nervous little shrug.
Sort of. Fey eyes.
Then he looked back toward the doorway, his face tightening.
But there was nothing there. No elemental current, no wind pressure, no earth pull, no flame, no binding threads, no spoken shaping. Derek just moved.
A chill slid down my spine.
Will. It was pure force of will.
Corin said in awe. For once, Jada had no sharp reply ready. May folded her thick arms, gaze still fixed on the ruined entrance.
I've seen elder elephants use power that way, effortlessly. No chanting, no ingredients, no ritual, just decision.
Rollo looked between them.
Then he's an elder?
No,
May said at once.
he's clearly not an elder.
Rollo scratched the back of his neck.
Then maybe he's some kind of freak from House Mythos. Something so rare nobody sees it often enough to know what it is.
No one laughed. Jada exhaled hard through her nose.
Come on, let's get you both inside before I have to start a stampede to protect you.
Jada, Rollo, and May closed in around us, forming a protective triangle as we moved into the school, with Corin tucked close behind. Maybe my father was right. Maybe I was safer here after all. But I couldn't breathe. The wolves' laughter rang around me, but all I could hear was the echo of Derek's body cracking against the doors. All I could smell was sandalwood and cedar and stone that had drunk fire for 1,000 years. Not magic, Corin had said, or not magic as he knew it. So what was he? A wolf? An elephant? A rhino? Something from House Mythos, so rare no one could name it. Or something else entirely. He hadn't just saved me. He'd marked me, drawn a line in blood and splinters that tied my fate to his. Every eye in that courtyard knew it. Every growl and whisper said the same thing. Omega or not, I belonged to the hooded boy now. Hey all, this is Cybele. I made it inside, barely. But after the hooded boy broke down those doors, everyone here thinks I belong to him. And I don't know if that's a bad thing or If I like the idea, tell me what you think of him, Corin, and Jada in the comments. Then like this video, subscribe, and head into episode 3. It's already out, and the stones are waiting for us.